you're a pro at this. You come from, you're in the studio business, the music business. You know the red light, right? It's all good on your end, right?
Red means
So
recording.
yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, I ask all my guests this to get us started here. What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
Just some granola with Greek yogurt. That's my favorite.
Okay, that's nice, nice. Anything to drink there? You go coffee drinker, orange juice, anything fancy?
Coffee, dreaming of coffee. Can't wait to wake up to have coffee. What about you?
Yeah, so a couple eggs, half a bagel, some orange juice. Not a coffee drinker over here. So yeah, that's the old breakfast, couple eggs in there, sunny side up. But well, cool. I think we're sounding good. Why don't we actually jump into why we're talking and not about breakfast food? So why don't you tell my listeners who you are and what you're currently raising money for over on Kickstarter?
Right. My name is Mike. I run Bird Kids. Founded Bird Kids back in 2012. Basically, myself, I come from production side of things. I've been doing music and producing music professionally in the mid 2000s. I started when I was in my early 20s, and before that, I used to DJ. So there was always music in my life. My mom's piano teacher, and kind of grew up playing instruments, making music, always interested in the aspect of like electronic production machines and so on. So synthesizers come pretty naturally, and my entire background is in key-based instruments, and basically I play a little bit of bass, but I suck at it, and also drums. And all my friends, producer friends, and pretty much my entire environment is obsessed with synths. So we definitely define ourselves by electronic music instruments. Having said that, as a company, Bird Kids, it took quite a while to actually produce our first instruments, because we started off doing label firsts, focusing on experimental electronic music, acoustic music, symbiosis, sure, combination of those things, promoting young talent in Austria, and kind of clicking, but always with the idea of bringing hardware into the game. But hardware is very tricky, especially if you want to do a high quality instrument. Modular synthesizers were our gateway drug to producing the first synthesizer. It might take anywhere between 3 and 5 years to come up with a really like special kind of sound, and you got to do a lot of research. You got to do a lot of like starting from scratch and scrapping and going again. And then we came up with this modular system. I got one right here. That's our Butler.
That's cool.
And we started with it. That was our debut. No expectations whatsoever. No business plan. No huge dreams of going out there and creating like hardware for the rest of the world. But it caught on fire, and we got super good response without even anticipating so. And that's how actually Bird Kids as a hardware manufacturing started. There was never a plan to do a company. That just grew organically. So, as I said, synthesizers. We are synth nerds, definitely, but that's not really what defines us primarily. We love synths and we love music production, but it's really about the ability for people to make music. And non-discriminatory approach. As I told you, I grew up playing piano. My mom and most of my teachers were stern Eastern European, Russian style piano teachers, so not really encouraging. And that's something that I really wanted to change about people's perception with music. I see a lot of people saying, okay, off-grid, that's the thing that we've got going on right now. I'm just going to jump ahead. Lets you make music everywhere, wherever you are, using whatever you have in your pocket, which is a smartphone. That's all you need. You've got your smartphone, you've got this thing, and you can actually play. So first I had people tell me like, wow, that makes music making way too easy, way too simple. Where is the theory? Where is the approach? Where is the learn a goddamn instrument? And I'm like,
right.
Chill out. That's not really that, if you want to play an instrument really well, you'll end up there. Yeah. And offGRID is not gonna like steal your ability to play an instrument or take away your job or anything like that. It's more of a, how do we make it joyful and fun for people to just pick up something and start making sound?
Sure.
And a lot of the time when I was producing music back in the 2000s, I'd be on a train in Europe. We travel on trains a lot. So that was way before EasyJet. And I'd have a commission for a remix, and, I'd have a laptop. And I didn't take it too seriously. Okay, I've got a laptop, I'm going to make music. No, it was more about reading. Then after a while, I figured out, why not? Let's give Ableton Live a chance. Let's hit the track, let's record, and let's try a couple of things. And I'd use whatever I have on me, which was the keyboard on the computer. And it worked out perfectly fine. You know, once you have your juices flowing, once you have those ideas, you never know where they come from. You know, you never know where inspiration strikes or how or why. So you don't take credit for that. You're just like, I'm here. Let's hit record. And let's do something. And that's exactly what I wanted to do with offGRID. With offGRID, it was kind of like, okay, you've got jumping ahead 10 years from now, and we've got those raw power computing power horses in our pockets. Smartphones cost near to nothing. They're incredibly amazing at like giving people and developers the ability to create awesome software. And that's where we come in. There's a certain sweet spot that, in my opinion, is lost with swipeable, you know, one size, one approach fits all. It's kind of like the developers of those smartphones and tablets think about accommodating most use cases and kind of like compromising on a certain level in favor of giving everybody a platform to work with and program for. But for music making, for some creative approaches, we're still pretty much apes. We're still stuck with those digits, with those ears, eyes, and not using them to full effect seems like a waste.
Sure.
So there's so much that actually doesn't have to be logically explained. You just want to touch and feel the feedback. You want to have that aftertouch to really feel how you additionally press. You want to modulate the joystick. You want to just really be in the flow. You want to use your gestures. You want to do wild, crazy things. And that's where creativity hits the sweet spot.
That's cool.
Using those faculties that we already have biologically, gives us the ability to just be in the zone, be in the flow, not think about how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to arrange that, whatever. Just hit record and you play, and you jump to the next track and you play. As long as you're in the flow, you switch off, you know, the regulatory, the Eastern European stern features, and you're just there, and it's going on, and that's what we want to do pretty much with offGRID.
That's cool. How like, so what was the process then of, you know, you've held up the I guess, is that the prototype, I'm assuming, or the final prototype there in the video and stuff? Is how long did it take you to get to that portion of what you were holding there?
Oh wow, a while. So why it took us so long? It's not necessarily because of the physical constraints of that instrument as such. It's more about figuring, you know, we work iteratively, and luckily in my team I've got just incredibly talented people who come up with just, you know, mind-blowing ideas. But the point is to really get to the point where you can say this is not just a nice design, a nice idea, and a nice approach, but it all clicks together. Takes iteration upon iteration. And literally we did dozens, if not hundreds, physical prototyping designs in coming to the form and function, and all of this clicking together.
Wow.
Sorry about the sound. And basically, we're really lucky to go in collaboration with Farm Labs, who are based in Boston. If I'm not mistaken, or it's just Boston, yeah. And we've been specifically collaborating with Farm Labs in Berlin to prototype those 3D cases. So, as mentioned earlier, the modular stuff that we've done, in a way, is kind of old school approach. You have your face plate. Yeah. So it's kind of two-dimensional, and then within those constraints, which are also normed, you can come up with a design which adheres to your function, but with commercially available mass production kind of approach, it's all open.
Right.
And you're free to do whatever you want, and it's kind of scary and it's kind of awesome because you're like, wow, we can really do whatever we want. And then, but at the same time, you have to think about what makes it general purpose in a sense to fit a lot of use cases, but what also talks to you on a completely archaic level.
Right.
There are certain archetypes like the Game Boy, right? We grew up. I mean, you're an 80s kid, or let's me too. And a lot of us grew up with Game Boys and and all those awesome things. And when you give someone some type of gamepad type design, it clicks instantly. You don't have to explain what it is. It's playful, and you're supposed to play on it. And that's exactly what we want to do. Okay, it just clicks with you first. It's like, oh, cool. I'm gonna just use my thumbs. And you're like, wow, I can use my thumb to actually like bend the string. Right. And I can actually add a gesture. And it really, like, you don't have to think how you're going to connect it, because your smartphone already comes with a pre-installed DAW, which is effing amazing. Right? Yeah. Whether you're on Android or iOS, you've got your GarageBand, you've got your Caustic, and they're all free, and they're amazing. Like 10 years ago, you gave me that DAW. Who knows what would have happened, right? And I think the next Jay Dilla, you're from Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Is somewhere out there in high school right now. He's like 9, 10, 11 years old. He's already got his smartphone. He's already got his headphones bundled with the smartphone.
Yep.
And he's got some free app with dope 808 kicks. and all he needs is some kind of surface, some kind of device which is affordable, small, compact, and doesn't really force some kind of workflow on him.
Yeah.
Let him be him or her and just go with it.
Yeah. It's shocking. I mean, I grew up on tape. I got my first 16-track reel-to-reel and a Mackie 1604 when I was 13, figuring out that stuff and tape delay and doing all that sort of stuff in my bedroom. And now I'm watching, I have a son, he's 9. He's got a Roland drum machine on his iPad, and he's like, check out this beat I made, Dad. And it's just like, okay, that's pretty cool. And just how he, like, the fact I guess I don't know if I'm envious of it, but like it took me forever to like save up to buy one guitar pedal, and I'd be like, I got this tube screamer, holy cow, or I got a wah, and listen, and then I'm watching him go like, I don't know, I have all this sound. Look at I got the the entire sound library on a 64 gig iPad. So I'm intrigued to see what he is making when he starts getting into that. I guess I started when I was 12, right? That guitar, and like, I'm figuring out, I'm Sweet Child of Mine, figuring it out, right? Like, what is he figuring out beat wise on his device,
Totally. I mean, part of you probably says like, wow, I had to work really hard to get to like this component and that and that and that and that. But then again, I think also looking at developers, particularly when a lot of the time when I look at user interfaces on an app, like the user design UX aspect of it is, you've got all your options, but still a lot of developers are very cautious and kind of shy of stepping away from the pulleys and levers of old designs.
Yep.
You'll still see the classic like 88 keys, and they're all squeezed in there on that tiny surface. And you're like, why? I mean, it's. I know you're paying homage to like some instrument, and it's amazing, and we love it. We love a CS80, but like step beyond that. Let the app be completely loose of any physical manifestation of like older days, older ages, and let us come up with new designs for the human machine interface, which is the kind of like the scientific name to call it. That's an HMI, right? So there's an HMI, there is an awesome app, and then in between that's where the magic happens. You let people be able to interface that without thinking how they interface or how they're going to figure out how to like rotate those faders and push those buttons on your smartphone. And you just keep it in a pocket. You have your headphones, you have this thing, and you're just close your eyes and play.
Yeah.
I think that's where this then happens.
Yeah, I think that is, I know I'm speaking for myself here, but that is one of my challenging parts, is to rethink being a musician. So like even right now I do live sound for a fairly large mega church, right? And, big auditorium, and I've got all the fancy gear, right? And because I grew up on SSLs and tape machines and Neve gear, like I know what those sound like and what the plugins are trying to get to. So I'm like, I know what these things do. So I put an SSL on every channel. I put a Neve or on the drums, whatever it is. And then we've got a couple of newer kids who are in their early 20s and they're just getting started and they don't have any idea what any of this, they just, so I'm watching them pull up plugins and I'm like, why do you have all those things? Like, put the SSL on, it'll sound good on your drums. Next, move on. So there's this like, I think for a lot of musicians, there's this, I'm struggling with it. Like, I want to go into this new world, but my brain instantly goes, man, I'll just go get the CS80. I know what it does. It does exactly what I want. I know where all the buttons are. Move on. But I don't have that open creativity anymore to just let go and just do what you're talking about. Just let it happen. Something happens in our brains where we get stuck, and I'm stuck right now in it. It's just I don't know.
I totally get it. I mean, going back to modular, the reason why, let's say 5-10 years ago, the craze started is you'd have like complete beginners entering modular because they thought it's cool, because like their favorite producers had couple of wires, and they're like, whoa, okay, let me wrap my hand around it. And honestly, I knew my way around the synthesizer even before I knew there are modulars. I'm not claiming that I was in there in the 90s or anything like that. I fairly recent entry into the modular world, shortly before I started actually manufacturing any. And I was scared shitless, and I didn't know my synthesizer flow. That's not the point. I knew everything, but looking at it from the perspective of what it looks like to the outside world, it's effing scary, and you need to really wrap your hand around it to figure out, okay, this is actually going to free my workflow. A lot of the producers these days, professional producers with like a ton of records under their belt, are approaching the modular as a way to unlock creativity, in the sense of like stepping away from the computer, going with an open head and just starting patching, not thinking about the outcome or what you want to do. It's really not about bread and butter sounds or getting results. It's just about sitting there and letting them the process take over. So I think if you let yourself, be surprised and get lucky with some new kind of gear, and sometimes all it takes is just a toy. It could be a toy, you give someone a ukulele and that's an awesome guitar player, and you'll come up with new ways to play it, right? Yeah. Also, I think it's also good to go back into the state of being a child and curious about trying stuff out.
Yep.
And if you let loose of the notion of the aspect that it's got to be professional, we all know our SSL mix bus compressors. If you let go of that notion and you just mess with stuff without any expectations or wanting to have a professional result, cool things will happen.
Yeah, I think that is, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, this product, offGRID, really fits into that, maybe that songwriting mindset. Because I would think about, I got a lot of stuff out there, but there was a different mindset when I was in songwriting where everything was wide open. I would just, I'd had guitars, pianos, and I would just be like, and then it turned into like, now I need to really capture this for the professional thing that you just talked about. Right. So maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, this product kind of fits into that. Like, I'm on a train, I'm on a plane, I'm going to let this experience do whatever the magic stuff that is in the brain, and be able to still have, because I agree with you, I can't stay on the keyboard and I can get it done, but like Ableton, and that's not music in my mind. Tapping D's and or whatever it is. So having that, getting that maybe in, because it's one of the things where I haven't wrote a song in a while just because it's so laptop based. I just Yeah,
no, I thought it's so totally. It's just a thing, going back into the mode of not expecting any tremendous results, going in with an open head is, for me, not regression, that's actually progression, because if we keep to our playbook of that's how it's supposed to be, we eventually turn out to be that stern teacher that discourages us, right? Because so in a way, people ask me, okay, will I be able to implement into Ableton my workflow? Yeah, you will, of course. You can map MIDI, you can play MPE, you can, eventually down the line, we're going to figure out how to write the daemon tool so you can transmit all those gestures into OSC. So yeah, it will be totally accessible to professionals to just go out there and venture and do awesome stuff with it as well. And you'll be able to control your Unity with gestures and
cool.
and like rotate stuff around the room, of course. Give people a new tool and they'll find applications for it.
Yeah.
But primarily, I'm thinking of those who are not yet initiated and of those who've never touched a piece of, because I mean, honestly, with the Kickstarter campaign, we'll talk about that probably in short, but it's humbling to have people actually, you'll laugh first, but it's humbling to come up and someone will ask me, but I thought it produces music by itself. And you're kind of, the devil inside you says, dude, the only way it'll produce music is if you bang it against the wall. But it's a MIDI controller, for God's sake. But actually, that's a cool question because it poses kind of like you start thinking about that people actually have no idea what a MIDI controller is. And that's cool. It forces us to come up with a new language and not take everything for granted, and kind of say, right, people don't necessarily understand what's the value of the velocity, sensitivity, aftertouch. Those are like words you and I can exchange.
Right.
But it all boils down to telling someone, you'll be able to use your favorite app, but what you add to that is more of you in the flow. It sounds kind of marketing-y, but in a way, it's more about the human touch.
Yeah.
Which gets lost in the translation between the screen and what you want to get down idea-wise. So it's really about this human component, feeling, the feedback, the whatever exchange of ideas between your cortex and your fingers and what goes in there and how much you pressed and how much you shifted and how much you rotated, all those things translate, and then you're intuitively in there. And it doesn't take any VR glasses or anything like that. You don't need to surround yourself with artificial spaces or three-dimensional whatever. It's just you and your body and the music, and you're one unit.
That's cool.
Right.
Cool.
That's
really cool. Now is this the third campaign you ran? I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
That's right. Yeah, we had the Raven, which was our modular synthesizer run in 2018. Then at the beginning of the year, late February, we've launched offGRID first.
Yep.
We didn't succeed with the campaign, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And now that's the relaunch of offGRID.
Right.
So this one was obviously more successful.
And did you always in your mind have Kickstarter as a launch application for this product?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And the reason is because I think Kickstarter has the capacity to actually reach out to an audience which we would have no access to. I wouldn't know how to approach them, how to talk to them. Right. I have no idea how to find them other than by large platform that knows how to do that.
Right. So because of that, let's talk a little bit around how did you get into this one being successful from the first one? What were some of the things that changed? What was happening maybe behind the scenes? And then we'll talk about this campaign as to where you are right now with 5 days to go.
Yeah. Okay. The very interesting realization with the first campaign was we set some goals. We said what we want to do is we want to reach out to people and actually extend our expertise as boutique modular manufacturers based in Europe, doing gear, like whatever, built under moonlight on one day in a month, sounding extremely good. All that stuff, we wanted to translate that to a new audience. I wouldn't call it a mass production instrument. It's just a new audience, a wider audience who has no idea who we are, who doesn't care, and really has no obligations towards us, are not our clients, and couldn't care less if we already delivered instruments to some of the world's best musicians. So we needed to really talk to them honestly about who we are, what we do. And we thought that setting the goal realistically in the sense of we tell them what we need it for, mainly making the first batch, would set not just a serious tone, not just a serious intention, but also tell them how hard it is actually to manufacture a piece of hardware. Because I think everybody takes for granted that all those gadgety stuff that is out there on those campaigns, people don't really necessarily care how it's made or where it's made. It's just like put more stuff in it, make it cheap, cheerful, and give me 10 color options, and I'll think about it. So we wanted to come up like with it's a curated set of things that we're going to offer, and here's why, and here's how much we need to make it happen. So it was all about a serious, real tone, and the goal we set was fairly to say quite high. We said we need 125,000 euros, and we gave people the transparency calculation telling them that, that's just part of the equation, because 125,000 is just the manufacturing cost. It doesn't account for tools, it doesn't account for development, it doesn't account for a lot of things that we'll actually have to prepay anyway.
Right. Yep.
We just want this part of it, the chunk, which is considered, like substantial, but it's just a chunk, and then we can make it happen. And that proposition, I don't think it sticks with the mentality of a crowdfunding campaign so much, because having said all that and approaching people honestly, it's not necessary. People don't necessarily have an obligation towards you. It's like, figure out yourself, are you going to do it? We'll stay here for the ride. And some people were extremely cool about it. I mean, they said like, yeah, that's it, and we want to try it out, and we'll help you along the way. And the support was tremendous. I thought even the first campaign did really well comparing to what we could have done by ourselves. So I would definitely recommend anyone to try and find their audience and find their community. And our community was there for us almost all of the time, right? But then again, that goal was pretty high.
Yeah.
And we had to find alternative ways to actually investments, how we can actually do that manufacturing regardless, because in our, we're set. We're doing it anyway,
right?
Regardless of the campaign. And we were lucky to find some, because some people saw that campaign and thought it's a cool idea, and they want to join in and want to go with us along the way. So then we thought there's so much more we can actually do with that campaign than just collect money for the first batch. It's really the proposition of how do we reach out to that audience. So we thought the first campaign is actually proof of concept regarding who's our audience, what's the tone we're setting, what feedback comes back. And it was really more about understanding how we, on a granular level, we can talk to our ambassadors for future generations of that product. Because if it's like, let's say we have roughly 1,200 people on there right now pledging for it, theoretically there could be 10, 20, 30,000 people out there who will find out eventually about offGRID. This small percentage of the theoretical number out there represents pretty much the different types of offGRID users.
Right.
With their own mindsets, their own use cases, their own favorite apps. And there is so much for us to learn about them, because we're not like in a product pipeline kind of thing where we churn out one product every couple of months. It's just this thing, and we're going to focus on it for the next 1, 2, 3 years, nothing else. And we want to make it the best controller out there on the market for that price range, with those specific feature sets and those possibilities.
Right.
And for that, we really need to know who our audience is and what makes them tick.
Yeah, so I think that's a good jumping off point here. So on this Kickstarter with 5 days to go, and you kind of mentioned it, you're at like 1,300 backers. You're at just under $140,000 US. You'll probably go a lot higher here in the last week, because last week you usually see a nice uptick. So ultimately, that new approach to this campaign clearly was successful, right? Now in between that time from the first one, the second one, what were you doing to still keep that energy up, make sure people didn't get discouraged? Because again, a lot of people do what you've done. They come out of the gate and they're off just a little bit, right? You refocus, but how are you keeping everybody's spirits up, energy up to say, everything's cool. This happens, and just do it again.
You said it yourself. I mean, it's really about keeping people updated on a regular level, and not making them feel like it's their fault or anything like that. Because it's really it's on us. We miscalculated, and that's not how Kickstarter works. That's not how those things work. We figured it out. We found an alternative way. So this campaign is actually about making all those efforts go towards an educational platform, and they go towards actually making this product understand what we can put in there, which is not just the additional colors or blinking lights or stuff like that, but how can we make it really fundamentally better than anything out there, based not on what we want to give you, but what you actually need and what we can incorporate into the possible constraints. So having said that, I believe the best approach is just as if you were talking one-on-one with the person who is believing you, who is supporting you, and who is to be completely transparent about your motivation, what you want to do with that, and where you want to go with that. And if they understand you, then that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah,
just keep them not just in the loop, like, hey, there's more stuff coming or something like that, but kind of this is what it's all about. This is why we fall and we get up and we try it again.
Yep.
And it's not about the money. It's more about making it the best we can do together.
Yep. And that's,
yeah.
That's one of the biggest things I always tell people. I'm like, yeah, the money's great. I get it, but you're not thinking about how this is going to impact your entire company, these insiders. And these are the people who are telling their friends, like they're the ones, if they're the first adopters, they're the ones saying, look at this thing. I mean, and that's the gold. Inside of this campaign, has there been anything that's really stuck out where you just did not expect it at all? With that many backers, has there been like a country that stood out, or comments you've been getting, or just something that you were like, man, we did not expect this?
Well, I think there's a lot of turns and things that we did not expect. I think psychology of a crowdfunding campaign essentially is a completely different thing outside of realm of what we thought would be, because none of us in Team Berk is really classically educated in the marketing aspect of things. So understanding people's psychology in a crowdfunding campaign. Some come for the bargain, some come for an additional feature, and some people are super happy to help. And just the amount of help that people give each other in the comment section, getting people, what we figured out in the first campaign, we did maybe 3 updates, just to give you a quick round on 3 updates, or in total maybe 4. And that worked out okay, but I think keeping people engaged is much more than just statistics. It's more about opening the dialogue. Yeah. So we started it early. We started the dialogue early. We said, we really want to try and implement some stretch goals. Help us figure out which stretch goals those could be. And some would be completely out there, like make it a looper, make it add an headphones output and microphone input and stuff like that, and so on. Which is cool and funny. And some people are extremely helpful, and you see that they're in there and trying to think with you what could make this a better product. And then we reached out and said, let's do a kind of ambassadors of a field. Let's see what people who are engaged in education could help us with understanding what the platform should look like. Right. Because so engagement is important. We didn't expect that people would be so helpful in engaging with it. Of course, the psychology and mentality of a crowdfunding campaign is such, with the early birds, with all those keeping things limited. We had to wrap our head around that, and it's quite surprising. And there's all of those keeping things edgy, as suggested by Kickstarter and everybody else, all those techniques. But I guess everyone who wants to run a campaign eventually will figure those things out. What I can definitely recommend is to not rush into opening up a campaign, but really educate yourself about all of the possibilities, and even better, get yourself professional support.
Yeah. It's a huge undertaking. I mean, the amount of people who just underestimate, it really is launching everything right now. It used to be maybe you didn't have to have a really solid social media or really good pay-per-click or whatever it is. you're launching basically your entire company right now. Everything's out there. You don't know what, everybody's got their own front door. So, you know, it's not a time where you launch it and then start figuring out your world. Like you got to build a crowd. You got to have some excitement. You got to have, you know, a little bit of stuff going on there. It may not have to be all perfect. That's why we get a lot of people who are just so stuck on brand, like our, you know, it's like, yeah, but I'd rather you just be active and be a part of this community and have conversations and, you know, actually talk about what you're working on. You know, I don't think anybody cares about your logo. They care about, are you a real person who's excited about this thing? You know?
Spot on.
Yeah.
You know, like I can come up and with a list of like people that are using our modular gear on stage, and it'll be mind blowing. And at the same time, nobody cares because this product is something else. You know, like you know, separate between your past, your present, and your future, and tell people about you. I mean, this is a future undertaking. So anybody going into the campaign most likely will have some future products, some concepts, something they need support for, monetary or psychologically, or just like boosting the thing. And I think that's the most awesome thing about those crowdfunding platforms is that it lets you go in with some concept and go out with so much more. You know, because it's not just about you. It's not just about your product anymore. It's about getting all of those people involved. It's really not about them pledging for something. It's more about, and getting a reward for it. It's more about, you get a extended family and users and friends through that who are with you all the way, ideally up until you release the product, and then hopefully for eternity.
Right.
And that's how you gotta go into it. You know, if you're going in it for just like, we need X buyers.
You know,
I know. Do run a pre-order shop or something.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it does make sense. So with, you know, so after the 5 days, the campaign ends, money starts dropping in the accounts. What starts to happen to get this product into musicians' hands?
Well, with the current situation of logistics, you know, worldwide, with us not being able to ship, for example, some packages to the US still, it was kind of problematic to get demo units out there. But luckily in Austria, we're based in Vienna, Austria, we're back on track more or less with all the production facilities running, which means that we can churn out the first demo units pretty soon. And all of those technological puzzle parts that we weren't able in the last months to actually have in hand are coming together. So we really immediately after the campaign already go into the last prototype stage.
Cool. Which
means the last prototype stage incorporates all of the technology, all of the pressure sensitivity, additional parts that we were waiting for to arrive. And after summer's end, we go into the big production. So we're going to use the next 2-3 months to finalize everything that goes into manufacturing, which is really not just about turning out PCBs and enclosures. It's more about the entire experience. And for that, we're developing kind of a playbook. What happens like on the granular level when you get that package? You know, like you open it up, what's in there? How do you start up, and so on and so on. Those things are so, because we are routinized in manufacturing hardware. That's really not the problem anymore.
Right.
We're not like the classical startup, like, oh, wow, how do we even go in there? We know how to do hardware. We know how to do firmware and software, but the entire experience of talking to an audience who's never experienced any of our products before, that's the biggest challenge. And that's what we're going to work on all throughout the summer before we go into large manufacturing.
Very cool.
And of course, immediately after the campaign, getting all the new feedback and all the people from the pledge and rewards and all of those things into the dialogue of continuing a better software experience down the line.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how about just in general for you as a company, like 5 years out, you know, putting on your future hat, like, you know, you mentioned maybe a couple years working on this product, but do you see yourself continuing to sort of navigate through this? Do you see yourself going back to, you know, maybe putting out some more music for people? What do you just see for the next 5 years?
Well, ideally, in 5 years' time, we'll be able to have team in-house specializing in exactly solutions of human-machine interface questions. So I think human-machine interfaces is something that's going to keep us occupied for X amount of years down the line, and that's really where we want to put all our efforts into currently. Having the overall higher motivation and goal in education of musical, both creativity, art, and so on. I mean, we're all an extended family. We love music, we love arts and technology. That's what defines us. You know, if you go to our website, you'll see we're deeply in love with arts and technology, and that's exactly what it is. So our hat, because you were talking about like the future hat, our hat is definitely not just classical synth nerd or the music instrument thingy. Our hat is education, encouragement, and enabling people through technology, embracing new technology, you know, not just like calling it out for like, wow, this is commercial, blah, blah. It's valid. And there are bright minds out there who are doing it. And there are bright minds out there who just wait to get infected with creativity.
That's cool.
And develop their, potential. And that's where I think we want to be for the rest of this brand's life.
Yeah. It's very cool. Very, very cool. So I've been ending all my episodes, since we're all kind of locked in and consuming a lot of content, with sort of a lightning round. So I'm intrigued as to what your answers are going to be on this, if you're ready for it. Ready for some questions?
Sure.
All right. What have you been watching on the either the Netflix or the Hulu, HBO? What have you been watching on the old streaming lately?
Oh, Last Dance, Michael Jordan, of course.
Yeah.
That was the, okay, I shouldn't say it, but actually I did not have a Netflix account.
Okay, that's all right.
Don't tell anyone. So now I do, or at least I'm in my 30-day trial, just because of Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And actually my dad sent me the link and he's like, wow, cool, there's a new documentary. So I checked it out, and that's why we're on Netflix. Other than that, we've been enjoying some documentaries.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on episode 3 of Last Dance. I was a very big Michael Jordan fan back in the day. That's cool. How about is there been a movie that you've watched recently at all that you've outside, like not a show or anything like that, but just a movie?
Yeah. What was the last movie that we watched? Good question. Actually, we've rewatched Ratatouille.
Oh,
Kickstarter,
okay.
right? And there's this chef there, and the rat, right? He has this, like, he's like, hey, I'm just a figment of your imagination, and he's like, he comes up with that really cheesy line, which is like, anyone can cook. And then at the end of the movie, there's the big payoff where he says like, oh yeah, I get it. It's not just that anyone can become a great cook, but it's that a great cook can come from anywhere. That's kind of,
nice.
Kind of what we're doing.
Yeah. That's a good one. Very, very good. How about are you reading any books?
Yeah, I do. I'm hooked a little bit on Ben Meserich's current thing on Boston Globe right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I read his he's so easy to read, like about UFOs and Facebook and Bitcoin and all those things. That's easy literature for just in between. Right now we're running the campaign, so I try to just free my head. And other than that, some last books that I read, I don't know, just really easy literature.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Now, I know that you listen to my podcast regularly, every single episode, hundreds and hundreds of them. But is there any other podcasts that you might be listening to?
Not that I remember recently. I haven't been able to actually devote so much time to that, but we do watch the occasional Zoom podcast of university based.
Oh, okay.
So my wife, for example, she's an architect, and we watch a lot of kind of architectural based themed talks right now. TED Talks.
That's cool. All right. My last one is, how about is there a website that you kind of go to, or you would recommend for like entrepreneurship, digital marketing, just to kind of stay in the loop of what's working? Is there anything that you're kind of always going to as a resource?
I wouldn't say there is a go-to be honest, but I find it encouraging to check out LinkedIn once in a while. To see, in between all of the shoulder tapping from people like, oh, we've done that, we've achieved this and that. There is the occasional interesting sharing of like, this is what helps me in the process. And I gotta say, now that I think about it, there is this masterclass series of documentaries and talks where you see people from all walks of life talk about their craft, which I think is super engaging. You'll have Danny Elfman, you'll have the Vogue editor, Anna Winter, and all those people. I mean, yeah, they've made it, yes. But at the same time, there's still people like you and I, and that's their journey, and those are the things that they learn, and it's distilled and beautifully made, beautifully. And it's captivating, and you hear some fresh thoughts, and you question the process. We've been watching this documentary by Olafur Eliasson recently, and just, he's very practically set craftsman in a way, and comes up with those brilliant concepts. So I think listening to people who are good at what they do is the most interesting thing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're busy schedule, a lot of stuff going on. This was a great conversation, and I was looking forward to it, and it definitely was exactly what I was hoping for. It was a great conversation. And for everybody else, if you got time, go over to the Kickstarter right now. Go to just search offGRID, check it out. You guys are kicking butt here. Hopefully they can, if they missed the Kickstarter, still get into your world. Hopefully some sort of pre-order, still stay around and reach out. And I'll put all that in the show notes. But again, great job on this campaign, and I'm glad you were successful on this one, because it's a cool product, and I'm excited to see it in the world. People use.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and I really hope that we bump into each other next year at NAMM or something like that.
We'll probably be there.
Yes, yeah,
yeah, we'll be wandering around. Hey. But I won't have the Zoom screen, so it'll.
I think I'll recognize you.
Is this NAMM though? Moving forward, just walk to the next booth, please.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, man. Thanks so much, and good luck with everything, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks so much.